To Gary, keep it simple. I'm really glad you're here. Have you ever wondered what you could get if you go all indulgent? There's some interesting pictures and things on here which you might find of use. Let's have a look. We're moving down here. And I'll read out what it says. It says application in a class of its own. Product information, M-5000. Hi-Fi news, highly recommended. So we know that some people have been having a look at it. It says, with more than 130 years of experience, Yamaha has grown to become the world's leading sound company. The M-5000 embodies the spirit of, with time-honoured craftsmanship and market-leading innovation, and serves as the epitome of high-fidelity audio reproduction. Now, if you know anything about Yamaha, you know that they've been around for a while. And it just says so in there, doesn't it? However, not only they've been around for a while, they've been actually highly regarded. Let's see what this has to offer. Now, it says on here, 200 watts plus 200 watts, 4 ohms, 20 to 20, 0.07% total harmonic distortion, 2 channels driven. What does that mean? It means it's pretty good. It's gonna put out some power, and it's going to do it. It's going to drive hard, and it's going to drive clean. 0.07% total harmonic distortion is pretty good. 100 watts plus 100 watts into 8 ohms, 20 to 20, 0.7%. So gives an output that when you put a load across it will give you the appropriate output. So what I'm saying is that if you put 8 ohms across it, it'll give you a certain power. And if you put 4 ohms across it, it'll give you a certain power. Now that means that the voltage at the outputs remain the same, because that's the way ohms and watts work. It just provides the output, and it depends on your speakers as to how it works. Meticulously designed balanced signal transmission. I'll have a look at that in a minute. Floating and balanced power amplifier layout for improved drivability. I don't see any wheels. Doesn't mean that, obviously. I'll explain what drivability means later on. Perfectly symmetrical design for isolating left and right channels. Hang on. Low impedance design with shortened signal and power supply paths. That's quite important if you're talking about high quality. I'm not going to use the word audiophile, but obviously that's the sort of thing that people might want to come up with. And then we're looking at here. It says improved construction delivers state-of-art rigidity and massive toroidal core power transformer. That actually, I'm not so impressed with improved construction. But massive toroidal core power transformer, that's got to be a good thing. They give you a 5-year warranty with it, which is nice. It says perfectly balanced, together with the GT5000 turntable and C5000 preamplifier. Yamaha delivers end-to-end balanced signal chain across flagship models for premier performance. What they're saying is it's good. Right, so I'm not talking about the turntable. It looks like a turntable. What I'm going to be talking about here is the actual amplifier. It says designed to perform. Now if you look on here, let me just move me out of the way a bit. No, that's not the one. It's that one. I'll move me over here. There we go. And I'll push the button. Yeah. This is where we start to see real design. This says here, designed to perform. Meticulously designed. The M-5000 adopts a perfectly symmetrical layout to isolate the left and the right channels, both physically and electrically. That's where the mounting bits comes in. The deliberate, simple design, which also serves to reduce the signal path as much as possible, minimises energy loss and achieves lower impedance for higher fidelity performance. Now, that thing about high fidelity and low impedance is important because you want to be able to shove the power out without it coming across any sort of resistance, which is what impedance is. So you want it to be, basically, if you wanted to throw a bucket of water at somebody, you wouldn't want to push it out with a water pistol. You'd want to use a fire hose. That's impedance. You know, it's easier to get the stuff out if you've got a big hole. Take that as you will. Okay, let's move on to the next bit then. Let's see what it says here. It says, am I clear? Yes, I am. Let's carry on then. It says floating and balanced power amplifier with MOSFETs. Well, and you can see it's floating there in the middle of nowhere. Look. If I put the mouse on there, you can see it's floating in the middle of nowhere. But what does that actually mean? I mean, that's actually the heat sinks behind. And they look very nice components on there. So let's have a look and see what it says. It says, as opposed to conventional power amplifier designs, whereby power is applied via a power transistor and the negative polarity is connected to ground. One day I learned to read. The power supply of the M-5000 is connected directly to each positive and negative side of the output stage. So what that is trying to say is that they're not tying it to a center point. They're actually allowing it, so they pull it negative with the negative volts and positive with the positive volts, completely floating the entire power amp circuit from the ground, and removes any undesirable impact of minute voltage fluctuations or ground noise, which is probably true. The design also creates an ideal symmetrical layout for employing MOSFET power amplifiers, improving drivability for low impedance speakers. Now, what that basically all means is that they're instead of tying it to things, they're connecting the speakers across the two rails and then swinging the rails. I just want to go back to the previous one here, just to point out. It says left channel signal path in, and it shows it there, and it says right channel signal path, and it comes in, it goes down there, and that's very short. Left channel power supply, right channel power supply. The two power supplies are actually isolated insofar as they don't share one power supply which they then feed to the two sides. They actually have two separate power supplies, according to that. Back to that, and then onto here. Rigid frame structure featuring a mechanical ground concept. The M-5000 has been designed from the ground up to maximize rigidity, reducing unwanted vibration for optimal sonic performance. Further, employing a mechanical ground concept by fixing the power transformer, block capacitors and heatsink directly to the rigid streamlined construction with bolts ensures they are fully supported and eliminates the influence of vibrations. Now actually that's quite important in this respect, because capacitors are two bits of metal separated by a gooey stuff, and transistors, well obviously they actually are lumps of crystal within a metal case. So it's quite possible for there to be a problem with vibration. Transistors not so much as valves, but you know, they can have it. So it's worth, if you're going to do the job, doing it properly, I guess. Massive toroidal core transformer and low impedance design. Delivering high fidelity performance, a massive toroidal transformer is utilized with a 3mm thick pure brass base which suppresses unwanted vibrations. In addition, the power transformer does not influence the surrounding audio circuits due to less leakage flux. The drawn-out copper wiring from the winding core contributes to low impedance design by markedly reducing the loss of energy when compared to conventional designs. Now, what does all that mean? I'll tell you what that means. It means it's a good transformer. It's a big transformer. Transformers are a mechanical device, although they don't work as a mechanical device, but they are physically made. Basically, you have a core of iron and you wrap it, all the windings around it, and they then induce the signal from one to the other, and that's how it works, which is great. But it does mean, of course, that they can be affected by vibration. So you don't want them to be rattling about because they're heavy, and you also don't want them to be, the coils to be rattling around either, because they will produce, well, in the simplest instance, they'll produce a physical audible hum when you put your ear to it, and sort of more technically minded, you're going to alter the specifications of the transformer are going to vary as it vibrates, so you don't want it to be giving out more or less current as it vibrates. And if you were really unlucky, it could get into a proper sort of cycle where it affected itself, and you know, it ran away and went up in smoke. But that isn't what's going to happen, because this is a very well made transformer. That's what it's saying. So is this bullshit? No, this is actually good stuff. Thick wires and screw type connections for power supply. Now this is something that a lot of people don't get right. Yamaha have obviously thought about it. If you use good quality terminals and you try and keep the connections low, you're going to get good everything. This is power supplies and smoothing capacitors and things like that. So what you want is you want to be able to get the power from where it's coming in from the toroidal transformer off to the actual circuitry that drive the speaker, and you don't want it to have. Now, can I just explain what impedance means? They keep on mentioning it. You've heard the word resistance. Now, if you think about it, if I stood in front of you and you were walking towards me and I asked you to move out of the way and you said, sorry, I can't because of whatever, you'll have to squeeze past, you would be offering a resistance, not necessarily a bad thing because, you know, I've asked you and you've said you'll let me push my way through, but you are producing a resistance to me being able to push through. Now, that's a DC resistance equivalent. If I asked you if you could move and you said, well, I can a little bit, but I'll give it a try, and I was having to push you and you were jiggling and I was jiggling and we were trying to get past, you would be impeding my path. You wouldn't be deliberately stopping it, but you'd be impeding my path. So impedance tends to be an AC thing, and it tends to be a case of it's the same as resistance, but it's different. But if that's a good enough explanation, then great. If it's not, then put comments and we'll cover it later. Now, thinking about that, I will be looking later on at the actual service, not service manual, the actual operator's manual. So we'll have a look at that as well. And, you know, you never know what we're going to find yet because we haven't got there. I was quite surprised when I looked through this. I've done a look at Yamaha stuff in the past, and I bought Yamaha motorbikes. But their attention to detail on this is quite immense. So let's have a look. Custom designed feet. All aspects of the M-5000 design were considered in producing this flagship model. Its construction exudes master craftsmanship and reflects an obsession with achieving the highest levels of performance. The feet are no exception. Original in its design, the heavy-duty brass feet function either as fully supported spikes or with a scratch guard base for use on delicate surfaces. So if you can afford one of these amplifiers, you might have an expensive table to put it on, in which case you've got a little bit of rubber. If you haven't got an expensive table to put it on, or if you've got something, you know, a lot of people would use something like a slab of concrete. It's quite an accepted way of doing it because you want to try and stop any sort of vibration happening. You want to stop it from trying to rattle or hum or zing. So if you can put it on something that's heavy, it's going to not move very much. I think that's the idea anyway. Exquisite large level meters reflect the dynamics in the music. The M-5000 features large, high-precision meters on the front panel, enabling audiences to visualize the dynamics of the music. Lovely. Measuring 7 millimeters thick and made from ashy glass, these quality meters only enhance the luxurious and exceptionally elegant aesthetics of the M-5000. Are they bullshit? No. Are they pretty? Yes. Are they useful? Yes. Are they essential? No. That's basically the way it comes down to it. If you like to see your needles bounce, then obviously you need to have the things to do it. This is nice. You can see here. Premier speaker terminals. The M-5000 utilizes oversized screw-type speaker terminals to ensure ease of use and a secure connection. Cut from a pure brass block, the original Yamaha design denotes a meticulous attention to detail and premier quality. 3 mm thick terminal base plate is also made from pure brass for strength and rigidity and assists in reducing distortion due to its non-magnetic properties. Right, they're using brass, not silver, not gold. Gold wouldn't be practical. It'd have to be gold plated. They've obviously made the design philosophy of go for brass because brass does tarnish but very, very slowly, and if you have the higher purity brass, it hangs in there for a long time. Also, it's a very good conductor, and unlike a plated material, you haven't then got a transition layer, because if you gold plate something, yes, it will connect well, but you've got where you know, you're going to have where the bits are touching. There is an element of differentness. If you have two different materials, then you will have a reaction, and they're trying to obviously avoid that. So by going with pure brass, it gives you the best of all worlds. Yamaha Music members. Oh. Related products, the GT5000, the C5000 and the NS5000, which we're not going to deal with. But what I am going to do, and you can see me do it here, is we go onto the specs. I'm going to have to move myself again, so bear with. Okay, now I'm over here. Hopefully you can see more what's going on. So let's have a go on this one. Some of these things I'm just going to tell you whether they're necessary or not, or if they're good. That's the whole idea. Let's keep it simple. Okay, so we're on the M-5000, and let's carry on here with the specs. It says here, audio specifications, input terminal, RCA 1, balanced 1, trigger in 1, output terminal, trigger out 1. Now the trigger is the ability to turn on and off any accessories you've got from the same power source. So it means you push one power button and it comes on, or you push its power button and the other thing comes on. What is that all right? Now, rated output power, 100 watts and 100 watts, 8 ohms, and 200, 4 ohms, so that proves that it's got a constant current and voltage supply. Well, not constant current. It means it's got a constant voltage supply, so the current is drawn with the lower wattage, with the lower ohmage. Right, so rated output power, 100 watts and 100 watts at 8 ohms, and total harmonic distortion is 0.07%, which is pretty good. And 200 watts at 4 ohms, which proves that it's being consistent. Dynamic power per channel, that's 125 watts. That's the ability to give a bit more than it's normally rated at. Dynamic headroom, 97 dB, which means it's better than the CD. Maximum output power, 220 watts. Plus 220 watts, 4 ohms, with 0.7% total harmonic distortion, which means that it's really giving it out some, and it's then about as bad as a cheap amplifier would be at its best. So that's a good figure. IEC output power 125 watts, and 125 watts into 8 ohms. Maximum effective output power, that's another figure, 135 watts. So that's sort of like the big bash bang. Power bandwidth 10 hertz to 50 kilohertz at 8 ohms, 0.1% harmonic distortion at 45 watts. So it really does manage to push out some power, this thing. Damping factor, 300 or higher. Input sensitivity. Now, input impedance is saying it's 47k, which is fairly standard for a line input, but it's saying it's 2 volts RMS on the balanced and it's 1 volt RMS on the unbalanced, because the way that it works, you've got 3 wires with balanced, you've got positive signal, negative signal and ground, whereas on the other one you've only got the one. So that's how that works. Maximum input frequency response is plus or minus 3 dB, well, plus 0 and minus 3 dB, which means not much difference at all. 5 hertz to 100 kilohertz, and at 0 dB minus to minus 0.3 dB, 20 hertz to 20 hertz. So 20 to 20 at a variation of no more than 0.3 dB. 0.3 dB, that's a very small number. Right, total harmonic distortion plus noise, 2 channels driven, 0.035%. line balanced and all the rest of it, so it's going on a mono drive. Basically, it's putting out an awful lot and not a lot of noise. Channel separation 90 dB or higher, so that means you do not hear crosstalk. So what goes in one channel does not happen in the other. 90 dB is enough to make you go deaf. If you could hear it, you've gone deaf, which is an oxymoron, but never mind that. Right, okay, input 1 kilo-ohm terminated 70 dB or higher. 10 kilohertz input, 1 kilo-ohm terminated. So all those numbers mean something, but basically 90 dB is an awful big number, so it's very separate. Signal noise ratio, and it says at 110 dB, so there we go. Residual noise is 50 microvolts RMS. That's the hiss if you turn it up such that you can hear it, but you're not going to hear it because it's that sort of quality. Meter class. The 2/50th class. No, yeah, the 2/5 class. Don't know what that means. I'll admit that, I don't know what that means. But anyway, power consumption 400 watts, which is relevant because obviously you've got your 200 watts and 200 watts. So that's why all the other bigger numbers are just for instantaneous, because otherwise you'd be pulling more power on the input, because watts remains the same. What's in, what's out can be less than what's in, but what's in has to be a minimum of what's out. Power on standby, not a lot, 0.2 watts, 0.1 watt in the off mode. Maximum power consumption, so when it's really giving it some, you can pull peaks of 800 watts. Power management, auto standby, yes. Dimensions, it is a not small thing, 435 by 180 by 464 millimeters, or 17 1/8 by 7 1/8 by 18 1/4 inches, which means it's big. It's 1.5 feet by just under a foot by just over 1.5 feet. So yeah, it's large, and this is where it really shows the weight. It's 26.9 kilograms, and if you don't know what that means, that's 59.3 pounds, which is a bag of coal. An old-fashioned sack of coal would be about that much. You're not going to carry that around with anything else. It's what you'd call a reasonable lift. I mean, you should be able to do it, but not if you've got any problems. I wouldn't recommend it anyway. So that's the specifications. It is a beautiful piece of kit to look at. Look at that. I mean, it's simplistic. There isn't much there. Let's have a look at the downloads. And if we go on to the big brochure, don't want to go to the safety brochure, we'll go to the owner's manual. Go to the owner's manual now. Boom. Look at that. You can tell it's big. Right. Looking at this, you can see the relevant bits. I will keep it relatively quick. Let's start at the pretty page at the beginning. So, with this manual, you get the pretty page at the beginning, which is an M-5000, blah, blah, blah. Right, okay. It's in English, about this manual, table of contents. So it's better than your average manual. I mean, normally you get this silly little sort of thing that's about, well, it's about the size of, well, there's a manual for a hard drive, It's a tiny little thing. It's very thick, that one, but it's tiny. And this is A4 sheets. Right, it's talking about mirror finish panels and all the rest of it, parts and functions. Now, you've got here standby on, off, and power, and you've got number 2, which is speaker selector. So you've got set of speakers connected to terminal A is on, select the set of speakers to terminal B is on. So you can switch from A to B. Can you have both? A, B, and A plus B. So you can have A and B on at the same time. Looking at this side, we've got meter display and we've got the meter selection. So you can decide whether you want to have it as peak or VU. You've got a dimmer, and on the other side we've got the input selector. So you've got line in and balance in. So that switch is basically redundant unless you've got both sorts of input, because this is a main amplifier. You don't go switching things. Basically, once you've got the signals in, there's your yes, you can see that on there. There is your line, not line input. Well, they are line inputs. They're the XLR inputs. So you've got your 3 pins. This is a switch to allow you to select the phase, which is to say which pin does what. And because you've got 2 pins, one could be positive, the other one could be negative, or hot and cold as they call it. And you might have it wired the opposite way around because of the way you're feeding it. And you've got RCA input jacks, number 5, which is, wherever that is, it must be on this page, there we go. Number 5, up the top there. So you've got RCAs, normal RCAs. And what else we got in here? We've got mode selectors, dual bridge. That's relevant only if you want to start getting really flash. But then, this is a flash piece of kit. Maybe you don't need to get more flash. Trigger in, trigger out, so you can use that as part of a daisy chain on the trigger, so you can switch that on, which will switch something else on, which will switch something else on, if that's the way it's wired. You wire it up. Balanced connections and unbalanced connections. That's showing the way the pins are configured. This is showing the way they're actually wired. As I said to you, 2 is hot, 1 is ground, and 3 is cold. It's the hot and the cold you've got to get the right way around, because if you swap them over, then you'll end up with the thing cancelled out. It says here connected to preamplifier. They talked about their own preamplifier primarily, and yeah, it's simple. You just plug it in. And the preamplifier, of course, has all the controls on it for switching things. And it says on here, if the preamplifier supports both balanced and unbalanced connections, use balanced. And then it says, do not use balanced or unbalanced. Somewhere on here it says, oh yeah, here we go. The unit's volume level is fixed. Do not connect something that does not have a volume control. Otherwise, it will be very loud and it will malfunction your speakers. Talking about the trigger connections, that's the switching things on and off. And talking about basically connecting the speakers. I guess that their speakers are very good. Because I'll tell you now what we're looking at here. See, the speaker connection is nice and simple. Screw lugs, nothing flash, none of this weird stuff that people do. It's just terminals. I like this because it's basically... Now, what I'm going to tell you in a minute is that this is not a piece of very cheap equipment. The actual specifications, oh right, okay. Various specifications, different countries. Their standby consumptions are virtually the same. Let's see if there's anything else that's of any relevance. No, not really. The power, dynamic power, that's all various ways of saying different things. There is your block diagram for it. It is simple. Input, amplifier, output. That's it. Audio characteristics. Oh yeah, this is the thing. You see how straight that is, the 20 kilohertz and the 1 kilohertz? But that is within 0.3 of a dB. It's absolutely amazing. And here's your total harmonic distortion. Up to the point where you get this little kick here. Basically, once it hits distortion, it goes crazy. But look how high, look how smooth, look how wonderful it is. It's absolutely brilliant. Total harmonic distortion, 8 ohms monaural. Look at that, it's even better. Frequency response is flat, basically up to 50k, and then it drops slightly. That is ultrasonic. Don't get it wrong. This is up to 50,000 hertz. Hi-fi counts to 20,000 hertz. Most people can't hear much above 15, and when you get to a certain age, you can't hear much above 10. And there's a troubleshooting section, which I believe is probably quite good. And then on to the other languages, which I won't worry about because I can't read them. Well, I can, but I don't necessarily understand them. But this is an absolutely beautiful piece of kit. I will now tell you what the price is. Well, I've looked it up, and basically it's £8,900, which if you were to buy in the UK, you could buy a Dacia car, a Sondero, for about that money. That's £8,900, roughly. And if you wanted to buy the preamp, oh, by the way, the preamp doesn't come with it. You have to buy that as well, and that's another £8,000. So the two together is £16,000. I haven't looked at the price of the turntable. I haven't looked at the price of the speakers, but I'm guessing they're going to be of a similar order of magnitude for what they are. However, would I buy one of these things? Well, I've dealt with Yamaha on their motorcycles for years, and they are beautifully made. And I've seen the Yamaha hi-fi equipment, because don't forget, Yamaha do stuff that's not very expensive as well. And it's all nicely put together. And I don't think there's such a thing as a bad Yamaha. There might be a low-cost Yamaha, but there's not a bad Yamaha. Would I buy one of these? If I had £16,000 to spare. To spare, yes, of course I would. But I haven't, so, Anyway. Can I look at it and admire it? Yes. Is it the same as looking at audiophile cables and saying, are they worth all that money? No, it's not the same as that, because this is equipment. This is well put together and it will work nice. Cables are cables. Now, maybe if you spent £16,000 on an amplifier, you want to spend £8,000 on a cable. I'm not sure I do, but I have seen cables advertised at £8,000. So, I think I will stick with that. Signals is signals, but this is a beautiful piece of kit. Anyway, I hope you got something from that. If you did, if you'd like to put anything in the comments, please do so. If you'd like to try and subscribe, I'm sure there's a bell and a button you can click on and you can get more of this sort of thing. I try to mix it up, try to keep it simple. If there's anything you don't understand and you'd like some information or to explain anything, then please put it in the comments below. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Catch you another time. Cheers. Bye-bye.